medical field, and I've challenged everyone in the audience. I said, show me the science behind stretching, that it's that valuable. I think, and we have to go back a ways, I have snow on my roof, so you guys not remember Bob Hayes from the Dallas Cowboys, but he was a hurdler in the Olympics and a sprinter, world-class sprinter, and Bob Hayes had the ability to just basically put his legs in any position he wanted. He was that, quote, flexible. He played for the Dallas Cowboys after he won some gold medals, and I think people got the idea that if Bob Hayes could be that flexible doing hamstring stretches, quad stretches, etc., that must be our new definition of flexibility. In fact, flexibility is the ability to move a joint as quickly as we want it to move under a performance. And so what happens is, everybody thought, gee whiz, I guess I better do a hamstring stretch where it's the hurdle or split or whatever the case. Sure. Because this is what Bob Hayes did. And so it evolved into this, quote, anecdotal science that said, warm up. Warming up has nothing to do with stretching. And I'm a big fan of warming up. Right. The old-fashioned aerobics, the old-fashioned jumping jacks. I know that sounds like antiquated, but the fact is we're talking about putting heat in the body. I always tell patients, you don't take your fan belt out of your car and put it in the oven, okay, to warm it up. That's right. Your car. It's the engine that provides the heat to warm up the tendons, all right, the fan belt. Well, to the body, okay, our tendons and muscles, we want movement. In fact, they perform by moving together and not coming apart. So efficiency in muscle performance is the muscle closing the joint. Well, what happens is, over time, people start pulling on their, particularly the knee pull to the chest for the hamstrings. And just this week, I saw 3 or 4 that were not torn off the bone attachment, but are so overstretched that they can't lift their legs or raise their shoulders, overstretching. I just find that it's, if you want to be warmed up and do that stretching, that's one thing. But keep in mind that when a muscle performs, it performs somewhere around 105 degrees. Now, if you woke up in the morning at 105 degree temperature, you'd be sick. Yeah. So we're talking about that kind of heat when we exercise. Well, watch somebody stretch on a floor or stretch in the gym or stretch before a baseball game, whatever the case may be. If you put a thermometer into that muscle, that 98 degree plus temperature of the body, normal body, won't raise 1 degree, not 1 degree. So if you think that pulling a shoulder across or grabbing your knees, bringing your chest, etc., is warming up, you know, you are leap years away from that idea.
Yeah. Do warm-ups differ from sport to sport? No, you see a lot of athletes, let's say out on the basketball court, getting those pre-warm-ups, doing their jogging and their layups, their free throws. How is it that a warm-up differs from sport to sport?
Well, in reality, it probably shouldn't, okay, in the sense of the early part of the warm-up. In other words, get heat into the body. Okay, get them sweating. All right. If I was in charge of a baseball team, they'd probably run the bases backwards and forwards instead of they do different distances. Okay. And if I was in charge of the basketball team, we would, before we really got out on the floor where the fans saw them, I would have them sweating. All right. And all the drills would be designed to keep them moving, so the body temperature is raised, and that point there, the muscles perform best, and they're being protected. Then when you get into your whatever you're doing, and obviously you see this in basketball or baseball, where we start doing what we do. We swing the bat, we throw, you know, we do jump shots, we do layups, etc. But the heat of the body is very important to prevent injury, and we don't do enough of it. We really don't.
You talk about body temperature in a sport that has a lot to do with fluctuating temperatures very rapidly is the sport of swimming. You have a swimmer right before he takes to the water, which is going to be quite significantly cooler than what his body temperature is. How does that play a role into making sure that a swimmer is well prepared?
Well, swimming is without a doubt probably my favorite exercise, and it's the one, if I wish the new hospital, for that matter, was putting in a new swimming facility for just recreational or lap swimming. And here's why. The body is at 98 degrees plus. The temperature of the water is not 98 degrees.
Right.
So when you exercise, you're fighting the coolness of the water. So I always tell swimmers, if you're sweating when you exercise, you are absolutely getting the maximum out of your exercise, more so than any other sport, because our environment, okay, is not fighting. We're not necessarily in swimming. We're fighting through the coolness of the water, and this is why you see swimmers so trim. and so lean. They are fighting that body mass, and that fat is just, once they get to be sweating when they actually swim, and U.S. swimmers, they sweat. People think, they think, how can a swimmer sweat because they're in the water? Oh, believe me, swimmers who sweat, are really toned.
Doc, you're talking about all these injuries and things. Is there anything that our listeners can do for even themselves, their kids? They have high school, junior high kids, to prevent these injuries, as far as maybe nutrition? Should they be eating some different things, drinking some different things, taking vitamins? What kind of things? I know you can't prevent a sprained ankle, but I think there's sometimes where you may be able to prevent a hamstring pull, some other types of injuries, ways that they can, maybe not have to come and see you and get them fixed.
Yeah, well, I had the opportunity when my son was in high school and grade school to coach a pretty competitive soccer team. We traveled all over Illinois and the Midwest, and we were quite good. And I was fortunate to have talent. I don't think it was always the coaching. But one thing, we had a rule that if the weekend of a tournament, that by 3 o'clock, in other words, they're done with their lunch at school, by 3 o'clock we stopped all sugar, high fructose corn syrup, sodas, and junk food. It was really interesting too, because some of the players on the team had family health care providers, nurses and doctors, and they all agreed. They never kind of really heard, never thought it was that adamant. But I'll tell you one thing, we never experienced cramping on a soccer field. And cramping on a soccer field in summertime, is almost unheard of. I mean, it's pretty typical. And so we until the last game on Sunday, and we played sometimes 4 or 5 games over a weekend, and one thing we said was no junk food. No junk food, whatever. The caffeine that's sitting in these sodas, and keep in mind, caffeine drags water with it.
Right.
So when you drink caffeine-type drinks, you're pulling water out of your body. Well, guess what? You're going to affect the kidneys, you're going to affect protein metabolism, you're going to affect how the muscle physiology occurs. So you're basically dehydrating yourself. And I'll tell you, we never in fact, we were pretty big on just water. Sometimes the sport drinks have been good. The sports drinks have dramatically changed. I mean, sometimes they're loaded with high fructose corn syrup and some caffeine products. So that's one thing we did. It was one of our rules, just right immediately.
Just off the bat.
No junk food through the prime season.
Yeah.
All right. I'll tell you something else we did, and I tell my athletes this also. During prime season, you're wearing shoes, you're wearing tennis shoes, and you're tying your shoes.
Right.
Okay. These kids run around these floppies. Okay. Now imagine yourself driving a car where the lug nuts are loose and the tires are flat. Okay, you're not going to get your best performance.
Right.
So these kids, every time they strike the ground, they're aggravating their ankle, their knee, their hip, their back, all the way up. So one thing I always tell them is during the season, I don't care what you do in off season, but during the season, get the tennis shoes on and tie them up. And I like what's called a ski boot knot, which is basically a little loop on the top that's different than you might see them in some of the more sophisticated shoe stores. And it's a real nice way of tying the shoe so that it braces the ankle. And the little things like that. And, it's really interesting. You would think you would see injuries in the beginning of the season, and you do. Kids are out of shape, and some goes on. Middle of the season. But what's amazing is the injuries at the end of the season. Now, if I'm a long-distance runner, I should be getting better as I go.
Right.
Okay? And so we have exhaustion. We have repetitive activity. We have repetitive abuse. All right? And things like
fatigue.
Fatigue, yeah, absolutely. And these athletes are in good shape. They should be recuperating.
Right.
And the result is they're tired. They're fatigued.
You mentioned shoes there just a minute ago, and it seems like every single sports season that comes out, whether it be boys sports, girls sports, junior high level on up to the college level, it seems like every single season they order a different type of shoe, whether it be a team shoe to bring in that team uniformity or what have you. It seems that a lot of teams are going for the most popular shoe or the most attractive design of a shoe. What exactly in a shoe makes for good support?
Well, I don't do much in the area of shoes. I know this. I happen to be a New Balance fan because of my high heel arch, my heel cup. And learning from being fitted properly, that a lot of the shoes are designed for the curb appeal and not for the function. I mean, the worst shoes ever are soccer shoes, and there's nothing in their arch supports. So I tell them, go get an orthotic, or go to the shoe store. There's some quality orthotics you can buy. Slide them in those shoes. Pull the guts out and put that orthotic in there. And that seems to me that you could take almost any shoe if you have yourself a quality orthotic all right? And you start with something simple, find something more sophisticated if you need it. Pull the guts out, put that in, and you're pretty well got yourself a custom-made shoe.
Right. Coach, Coach Doc, we've got basketball coming up. I know a thing to me. I was coming in to see you maybe about once a year. I had a twist an ankle, and we're just trying to recover as quickly from that. When we get into high school, you have trainers and things like that you can get taped. I know Coach Al used to tape our ankles all the time. But for guys in junior high, parents in junior high, what's something that they can do to prevent the sprained ankle? It seemed like the sprained ankle is a recurring injury for basketball players or volleyball players, anything like that. But do the tie-up ankle braces help? You don't have the luxury of probably buying tape all the time or having somebody that knows how to tape the ankle. Do those tie-up ankle braces really help?
No.
Okay.
That's really simple. Well, first of all, if you took the skin away from the lower leg, our lower leg's design does not look like a tied-up ankle brace. So therefore, they're just wrapping something. It is the tendon that moves the joint. It is the ligament that keeps the joint from going too far. So when someone sprains an ankle, one of two things take place. One, if there is swelling, it's a ligament. Pretty well got stuck for some time on there. If it is not swollen, it's a tendon, right? And typically, both those occur because of poor shoe wear or poor tying of the shoes. Watch these kids, Josh. I mean, Cameron, when they walk around the streets, they're walking out of their shoes, and every time they're striking the ground, they begin to break that ankle down, So what I tell the parent patient when the kid comes in is that we're going to make sure they tie the shoes properly. And also get in the habit, and it's really simple to do, like for instance in the ankle, grabbing the ankle above the ankle bone, the egg-shaped looking piece at the bottom of your foot, and start to stretch the tendons back towards the knees. Okay?
Yeah.
Nice little drill. It's easy, safe. Kids love it. Okay?
Right.
You get a little more spring in their step.
Sure. Good.
That sounder means that we do have a caller. Caller, go ahead. You're in the cheap seats with Kurtz, Komnick, and Dr. Dan.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Reimer.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good deal.
I'm going to ask Dr. Freesmeier.
Speak up a bit, Dion. We can barely hear you.
What was that?
You're going to have to speak up a little bit. We can barely hear you.
Okay. I was going to ask what Dr. Freesmeier thought about dynamic stretching instead of static.
Okay. I think what he was asking, Doc, is what are your thoughts on dynamic stretching rather than
Static stretching. Yeah, the static stretching is typically what everybody thinks about with stretching. If it is with movement, it was Dion? Yeah. Dion, if it is in movement, okay, it is always safe, all right? What happens is that if you appreciate how the muscle's designed with the joint, what you don't want to do is take the joint past its normal play. If you were to, I hope you can see this if you're watching this on the web, if you were to take your finger and push it back, there's a zone of safety designed so we will be able to tolerate stress, injury, contact. This zone is called the joint play, the play of the joint. It's our ability to wiggle, and every joint owns it. As long as dynamic stretching, which is movement type stretching, okay, takes place, and you stay inside that range, okay, and don't force yourself to be here, all right, then you will always be safe. And I understand the dynamic stretching is going to be more and more popular. Where we get in trouble with any one of them is if we might be out of balance. Let me tell you something. You can't stretch pain away. Pain might go away, but it will return with any kind of stretching. I am a fan of movement type warming up, whether you want to call it stretching or not, and dynamic stretching gets very close to that. Okay,
Gets very close.
Much better choice than the static stretching.
Sure.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah,
And
thanks for the call.
Thanks go out to Dessenheimer for that call. We're going to go ahead, step aside, and take a commercial break. And when we come back, we will continue our interview with Dr. Freesmeier and talk about using chiropractics as a preventive medicine. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.